64, and we're all ready to go.
Okay, ready to go, and good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started. We're going to reconvene this morning's hearing. Mr. McDermott, we're going to ask you to call the roll to take attendance. And the members that are in attendance, just please indicate that you are present or here to make sure that your image is displayed on the screen. Mr. McDermott, please call the roll.
Councilmember Bass. Councilmember Brooks.
Would somebody please answer or mute that interesting phone?
It's present.
Councilmember Dom.
Okay, you got me.
Present. Good afternoon, everybody.
Councilmember Gautier.
Present. Good afternoon.
Councilmember Gilmore Richardson. Councilmember Green. Councilmember Gim.
Good morning. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm present.
Councilmember Heenan.
Good afternoon. I am present.
Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Jones.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's go.
Three more.
Councilmember O'Neill. Councilmember O.
Good afternoon. I'm present.
All right, one more.
Councilmember Parker.
I'm present.
Oh,
Councilmember Quinones Sanchez. Councilmember Squilla. And Councilmember Thomas.
Good afternoon, present.
all right. Right. Okay, we got a quorum. We're ready to go. We have resumed our quorum as we reconvene. So, Mr. McDermott, I'm going to ask you to read the name of the next person that's prepared to testify.
Michael Rashid, Commerce Director.
Good morning. Good afternoon, sir. Just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony, Mr. Director.
Michael Rashid, Director of Commerce.
Please proceed.
Council President, at the end of the previous session, you asked for Mr. Baum to answer a question. Would you like for him to answer the question now?
Well, you can go ahead with your testimony, then he can. I'll just ask the question, and then he can just respond.
Okay. All right. Well, members of City Council, you already have my testimony. So, in the interest of time, I just want to make a few remarks regarding our commerce's priorities moving forward. The Department of Commerce has long been a champion for Philadelphia's business community. Under Mayor Kinney's administration, this tradition has continued. His commitment to education, equity, and diversity is unparalleled, and it will result in measurable progress for the entire city. This will be especially true for neighborhood businesses, which are the backbone of our city's economy. During 2020 and 2021, our major focus was on helping businesses cope with the devastating effects of the pandemic on their customers, their operations, their revenues, their costs, and their safety. We are not yet out of the woods on this recession and pandemic, but we do see light at the end of the tunnel. As we move forward, we need to be clear about our priorities, and we must measure and do a better job of reporting to you and to the community on our progress. At Commerce, we have 4 strategic priorities. The first is jobs. In our view, the availability of a pool of highly talented people is paramount to the success of a business and for attracting businesses to our city. That's why the Workforce Development Department is located within the Commerce Department. We connect the dots. We connect the dots between job trainers and the companies that need people. Over the past 18 months, we connected the dots with businesses to create over 7,000 jobs in our city. Guess what? We can do more. I want to see our workforce and business attraction units generate 25,000 jobs per year. This will require a closer working relationship with Philadelphia Works, the Community College of Philadelphia, and other highly trained and qualified organizations. They welcome our engagement, and so do employers. Building wealth, especially in the Black and brown communities, is our second key priority. As long as the wealth gap continues, our streets will not be safe, and unrest will be just one tragic news story away. For city government, it starts at home. We must do a better job with our OEO and minority contracting program. 30% is not enough. We should be at 50%, and we can do it. The mayor's recent executive order is a start. Our budget is a start. Working with the private sector on supply chain diversity is a major lever that we can and we will use to build wealth. These partnerships have just begun in earnest, and the ROI on them is tremendous. Our third priority is making it easier to do business with and in the city of Philadelphia. Quite frankly, it is disheartening to see the reports that we are one of the hardest cities to do business with. We must fix this. The administration is investing in Commerce's business response team. Our goal is to make meaningful shifts in the long-standing city processes that have challenged our business community. It won't happen overnight, but we are starting to do it. We will do it, and again, we will measure and report to you on our progress. Our goal is first to accurately track our business response processes, and then to make steady improvements. We won't be satisfied until we achieve a 90% approval rating. Our fourth priority is to remake our commercial corridors. Major improvements are needed to combat long-standing and long-term disinvestment, particularly in commercial corridors in majority-minority neighborhoods. Improvements and enhancements to storefronts, sidewalks, curbs, lighting, etc. create safe, clean, and attractive commercial corridors. It's only with these investments that we can actually revitalize our neighborhood destinations and attract shoppers, employees, and businesses. Our commitment to improve our corridors will include investments in PHL taking care of business, storefront improvements, business cameras, and other amenities. You ask, how are we going to measure our success in commercial corridor cleanup? We're going to measure our success the same way you measure downtown success. There's no reason the commercial corridor should be any less clean, less safe, less beautiful than our downtown areas. So to the extent that has not happened, we have not been successful. In spite of all the stories that you hear, Philadelphia remains a place where organizations seek to do business. We are one of the hottest national leaders in healthcare, education, cultural arts, and the financial services sector. New and lucrative opportunities in life sciences, technology, cargo, logistics, and logistics distribution are cropping up every day in our city. If we cultivate these opportunities with an eye towards equity, these growing industries can expand the tax base in our city and create quality jobs for thousands of Philadelphians. That's our goal. That's what we want to achieve. In FY2022 and beyond, we intend to act as a catalyst. We will be a catalyst for increased investment, for innovative programming, for creating incentives, and for higher levels of accountability. But most importantly, we will be the catalyst for the systemic change that this moment demands. Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, we'll take any questions that the council may have.
And thank you, Director Rashid, and welcome to your first budget hearing. Wish it could be in person. A lot more interesting when we're in person, but this is the hand we were dealt, and we'll do the best we can. Again, thank you, and thank you for your commitment and your willingness to come and help us out. It's very, very challenging times. Let me real quick. Let's follow up on that KOZ question. Mr. Bum is available.
Could you, since Dwayne wasn't here, could you repeat that question for him?
Oh, okay. Yeah, basically, just kind of in short version of the KOZ, Keystone Opportunity Zone. We know what it is, but just tell us how one is established, two, the requirements for a designation, and one of the things that is always asked is who does it benefit? This is, I guess, to some degree, a part of the overall general tax discussion. This is the most lucrative opportunity that anybody can be in the city of Philadelphia. We've seen, frankly speaking, abuse of the site. I know of a property and business in my district. They moved out of a building and they moved into a building across the Councilman Jones district, right across the river, because it has a KOZ, right? So that essentially that was not creating a new business. It just took a lot of revenue off the table. So tell us about the benefits associated with the net benefits associated with designation of these KOZs, and do we, because we have limitations on what we can do we impose a requirement for employment as it relates to the EOP plans? Do we require opportunities for young people in schools? Because this does take money off the table for the school district, like the CTE program and all these other programs that we need real support. So if I can get a sense of, I mean, we've been doing them. I have them. We passed them. I voted for them. Got a big old building right down in my district on right off of Arch Street, tallest building in the city. You look at it, oh, okay, whatever, you give incentives. But the bottom line is, is this really helping the citizens of the city of Philadelphia? And I guess that's my long version of a short question.
Okay, well, but before Dwayne answers, I would like to just acknowledge Dwayne. Most members of council have seen Dwayne over the years. This is his 25th and last council commerce budget hearing. He's about to retire. So I just want to acknowledge Dwayne for all the great work that he has done. He stayed on 6 months longer than he intended to stay to help me learn this job, and he's just been a great asset to us in the commerce department. So. Absolutely, and we concur, and we appreciate him. We'll probably put together a citation as we speak. I'm sure some members putting together a citation, but today we can probably ask him some kind of tough questions. All right, this is your last hurrah, Dwayne. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Council President. Again, my name's Dwayne Bum, Deputy Commerce Director. Sort of the long history of KOZ in sort of 2 minutes or less. This is a state program that's been around for over 20 years. And so I've been in front of you each and every one of those times, sort of asking either every time the state legislature sort of allows local governments to designate new sites for Keystone Opportunity Zone benefits, we come before City Council with some designated sites for designation. And then more recently, because there haven't been any sort of new zones allowed to be created in the last few years, we are still allowed to come back to the state to request a renewal of existing sites that have KOZ designation, so long as those sites remain vacant and underutilized. And so the program has been very impactful. It basically waives or abates most business taxes at both the state and local level. And if you consider a place like Philadelphia or Pennsylvania that are generally sort of considered to be high tax locations, that is a tremendous incentive. At the local level, we abate real estate tax, use and occupancy tax, business income receipt tax, and sales tax are the primary taxes we abate. And then at the state level, corporate sales tax as well as corporate income tax. Um, um, we we do require for any property to be part of the program, we require that they enter into a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with the city, a pilot agreement that basically pays us the real estate tax that they would have otherwise paid on the vacant property that exists, and we require them to pay 110% of what they would otherwise have paid. And so that has been largely intended to hold the school district harmless, because the school district receives 55% of real estate tax proceeds, and so vacant property, they are getting a little bit more than they would have otherwise gotten had the program not existed. The most recent and by far the largest KOZ transaction that we sort of brought before City Council was just last year, and that was the renewal and extension of KOZ benefits for the large former refinery site now owned and operated by Hilco. And so that came before City Council for about this time last year. It went before the school district school board last fall, and we submitted an application for that extension to reset the 10-year KOZ clock as of January 1st of this year. And I sort of actually bring that one up for a couple reasons. One is it's by far the largest, but it actually, we were able with that large transaction to, I think, accomplish much of what you had asked us to accomplish years ago. I've come before you when you've been less than happy with sort of our response to requirements that we place on the KOZ program to make sure that we are, in fact, benefiting the school district, the CTE programs, the training programs at schools, and also assuring that there is job creation that goes to all Philadelphians. And so with that most recent sort of example, we not only did we require this pilot agreement that sort of requires that they continue to pay real estate taxes on land as though it wasn't in the KOZ, but we also put in place an economic opportunity plan, and we added a representative of the school district to the oversight committee for that plan, so that the school district would also be tracking the sort of quarterly or progress in sort of contracting and subcontracting work, and also in sort of permanent employment at that huge site. That the refinery site is over 1,300 acres, and so it's a huge property. And so we've actually put in place, and we do now have sort of regular reporting from that developer on all sort of expenditures that they making, and their commitment, by the way, was 50% participation, minority women subcontracting opportunities, and so it sort of substantially exceeds what has been sort of generally sort of set for other similar projects. And then one last piece, that developer also was committed to a working with the school district on a job sort of mentoring and apprenticeship program, which we want to use as a model and build upon for sort of whether there are future KOZ sort of sites that may come before City Council or the school district, but even for just large employers that are sort of seeking any sort of city assistance, KOZ notwithstanding. I mean, the KOZ program is, I think, by far the largest incentive program that's in our arsenal of tools that we can sort of utilize. It's a very powerful tool. I think that the most recent modifications that we made better allow us to sort of track the outcomes I think we all are looking for.
Thank you. So this oversight committee that you referenced, who's on the oversight committee? Or is it project by project? project based?
Right. This is again. It would be project by project. It is each economic opportunity plan, and especially for developments, require an oversight committee. That committee again sort of always includes sort of key Commerce staff from the Office of Economic Opportunity, but others are members of city government and others in the business community. To sort of whether that group is meeting on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, always to track activities. The intent there being, it's too late after all contracts are awarded, and we find out that the contractor did not sort of, from our perspective, provide good faith efforts to maximize opportunities. We want to know sometimes on a month-to-month basis, where are you falling behind on the goal? And if so, what are you doing to make up for that so that we ultimately can achieve all the goals we've set for that? So that's the purpose of the Oversight Committee. Again, it is embedded in the Economic Opportunity Plan, and we have now tied Economic Opportunity Plan requirements to sort of any sort of development sites that are seeking KOZ benefits going forward as a way to secure those sorts of benefits.
Right. So, and I know there was a lot of work done on this latest one. As you said, the largest. I know our colleague, Councilman Johnson, has been intimately involved working with you all to ensure that we got the appropriate oversight in addition to the commitments. Prior to this one, because I think this one went above, and you kind of referenced it, above and beyond what we normally get as a result of these. All of the years that these KOZs have been in effect, is there a record of the compliance with the EOP plan, a record of how many jobs were actually created? Is there data that shows how successful those EOP plans were? And if there's such information available, can that be forwarded to the council office? Because we really we make a lot of decisions about tax benefits, and there's a big conversation going on now about possibly restructuring our taxing policy. So you got to look at what we've done in the past and to see what the real outcomes were in terms of employees, in terms of access, opportunities, the whole 9 yards. So is all that available in the archive somewhere? We can see. And I trust that when you tell me that they were successful, I've known you for like a long, long time.
Right.
But
also, and I don't want to misrepresent you. I would tell you that very few previous projects would have had EOPs attached to them. They were not required to, and they didn't. And so we weren't tracking them for that. And I would also sort of say that one of the sort of criticisms of this program, I think fairly, is that we did not always understand what the outcomes were. It's a state program. There are state requirements that we can't bend. We can either decide to participate in the program or not. So the state does require an annual application from all businesses seeking tax credits each year, and they sort of aggregate that. Businesses have to tell them how many jobs they create, how much they are investing. They report that out on every few years, not every year. It's not broken out for Philadelphia. We do our own sort of. We do require all businesses that receive a certain level of financial incentive from the city, and KOZ program absolutely triggers that reporting requirement. But it's a voluntary reporting. We have no, because we're in commerce and because taxpayer confidentiality does not extend to us, we do not know if what's been submitted is complete. So we do submit that report annually to City Council. My sense is that it is very incomplete. I would say a better sort of a more recent assessment of the program is the incentive study that we commissioned that came out just 2 years ago, and that we did that really sort of at council's request. We looked at the 7 largest incentive programs, or 7 of the largest incentive programs in the city. KOZ was one of them. It was the only one that was a state program, not a city program. And the report evaluate, sort of ultimately concluding that there were things about that program that should be sort of tweaked if we could, if the state would allow us to, but that it was a very impactful program, one of the most impactful that we have at our disposal, but the accountability was weak, and that is because we didn't have the reporting. And again, I do feel like what we did last summer with the refinery site starts to address that going forward, so that we're not sort of left with no knowledge of these, because we actually will have quarterly and even monthly reporting.
Right. All right. Well, thank you for that acknowledgement that prior to this most recent, the due diligence, and I know the state requirements and limitations and prohibitions, but it sounds like you got it right on this recent one. But when we reference the fact that we've been giving away a lot of different opportunities for people when we were discussing the NPI and development tax, all those other things, we referenced the fact that people have been getting away with a lot for a lot of years. And when you talk about it's impactful, the question is, who is it impactful for? We've seen too frequently that the people that needed to be impacted weren't necessarily the ones that were impacted. So we will hopefully never repeat those challenges associated with past practices on that. All right, well, Dwayne, I want to thank you, man. Thank you for working with you for all these years, sir.
Thank you.
We kind of grew up in government together.
That's right.
Appreciate all your hard work. And as I said, I'm sure that council resolution is being written as we speak. So be expecting to get one of those nice engrossed, bonded things that are like gold, right? All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, man. Mr. Director, sir, couple real quick ones, because I've already used up my time, but that's what happens when you're chairing. You get to abuse certain things. Real quick, violence prevention. There's been a whole lot of conversation about violence prevention, and I think that in all the conversation that we've had, there's a pretty significant consensus that at the end of the day, and let's set aside the law enforcement side, which needs to have some adjustments, but the side that we can have some level of impact, i.e. the legislative side, we kind of got a consensus that you got to have something at the end of the tunnel. Telling somebody to put the gun down or somebody going a different direction. You got to have a job, an opportunity, or something. And that's why when we put out our agenda, our violence prevention agenda, we call it Violence Prevention and Opportunities Agenda. Focusing on the opportunity side. We've all talked to a number of the individuals that are out on a consistent basis talking on the street. It's believed that if you can't tell a person that you can legitimately give them an opportunity, one for some sort of preparation, that can mean a lot of different things, because some people, they don't have driver's license. They don't have the skill set to even do an interview. They don't have clothes to wear to the interview, all those kind of things. They need educational enhancement to be able to pass a test if you need a test. And then they need somebody to direct them to, those real opportunities. And we're prepared to do that. We've been working on that. And we'll be working with your office. I need to know, because I look at this $2.99 million Office of Workforce Development, pay, whatever. Doesn't seem like a whole lot. But in that shop, who will be focused on the ability for us to get the help work with our partners in this whole violence prevention initiative? Because that's going to be a key component. If we can't help them do that, provide the resources, that part of the equation, because they're going to be out on the street dealing with young individuals, but we got to provide the resources. Who's going to be like your person on that?
Well, Heloise, who was on the line, she's our deputy director for workforce, will be in charge of that. However, you asked that question. I could give you some long answers, because I feel very strongly about that. Well, the connection between the guy who's standing on the corners selling drugs and what you talked about. I know for a fact they aren't standing out there in the rain and the snow and taking a chance on getting killed just because that's their aspiration in life. They feel desperate. They feel like they don't have enough alternative. And that's why they're doing that. And so we have to give them some real alternatives. So that's why I'm saying that we are the right people to do that, because we stand between these job training. It's frustrating to get trained for a job. You can get into a training program and then you can't find a job. So you spend 6 months in one of these programs and then you still back out here on the street. So we are the people who are talking to these companies every day. And so we can be, and this is what people have told us, we connect the dots between the training programs and the companies. We did it, and we do it every day. We can do it a lot better, and this is our priority. As I mentioned, one of our priorities is to do a better job of connecting the dots between business attraction, business retention, and our workforce development unit. But I can help Heloise talk for a few minutes about how we do that if you like.
Council President, can I have a point of information, please?
Well, let me follow up real quick on that one, Councilman.
Sure.
Eloise is a member of your staff.
Yeah, she's deputy director.
Let me be clear. And I recognize Councilman Johnson. This is not just your traditional type of person or entity that will have to. This is a specialized little situation. You gotta have a little bit of street cred, be able to deal with individuals. You gotta have some kind of understanding of whoever it is you're going to be working with. And I've gotten myself probably much later than Councilman Jones and Johnson, who've been working with a lot of these individuals a long time. You got to have a real perspective on what's going on out there, and you need to get it from those individuals. So I say that, and I'm not suggesting that the person you give me is not that person, but I've gotten enlightened significantly, in terms of what really required to be a part of this process. Because I think this is a standalone initiative, working with everybody engaged, the workforce development, all we should be focused on. I'm sorry. Councilman Johnson, you have a point of information?
Yes. Just wanted clarity. When we talk about connecting the dots, Brother Rashid, so is your team intertwined with the Office of Violence Prevention, Strategy on Gun Violence Prevention, and also the Group Violence Intervention Programs that specifically targets young men who are on either probation, parole, or most likely to kill to be killed? These individuals are being targeted on the law enforcement side, but there's supposed to be a resource side. So I just wanted clarity when you talk about connecting the dots. Is your team intertwined with that part of the administration's strategy? And just a small follow-up with Council President's comments regarding the street credibility. I do believe that the work Brother Rashid has been doing prior to him coming to the city of Philadelphia, also in the midst of him working his former profession with IBC, but being a head leader with Masjid of Law and the work that he's done in the Muslim community, gives some additional credibility in terms of reaching those individuals who are, not saying all of them are from that background, but I do know your work that you have done on the street. You know, you're an executive, Michael. You have been on the street addressing this issue of a significant period of time. So we're going to lean in on you on this particular issue because we know you've been there on the ground on several different times. And so I want to get an idea about what Council President is dead on head on. How are we intertwining that gun violence strategy with that workforce development piece? And I also believe that when the Council President said it's only 2.9 million, which again, we under investing in this key area that we believe that can help us get across this hump of gun violence, which we all know are in high areas of poverty. Thank you, Council President.
Yeah. Thank you for those kind words. I appreciate that. That 2.9 million is not for us to do training at all in terms of inside of the Commerce Department and Workforce. It's for us to link up and support others who are doing the training, and whether they're inside city government or outside. There's I dare say hundreds of training kind of programs in the city of Philadelphia. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. We're going to identify the ones that are best, and we're going to coordinate within city government, and again, with those outside training programs and City of Philadelphia, community colleges, one of them, we will work with them to bring them to the table when we talk to these companies that are hiring. All kinds of companies come to us all the time. Some of them, Amazon is one. Amazon says that's what they say. We have no problems with hiring re-entering citizens. Don't have to have a record, no problems with hiring them. So, we want to put that to the test. But we're going to bring various training programs to the table with them and say, okay, we can bring people to you. Sarah Stelz is on my team now. She's my chief of staff. She comes from a workforce putting people into jobs background.
Well, Mr. Rashid, just one last part. You said connecting the dots, and I think my initial question is, and it goes back to what Council President is alluding to, is your strategy intertwined with the administration's gun violence prevention strategy? Because they have several different programs that are addressing gun violence prevention, but we want to make sure that the jobs component, those dots are connected. So that's basically what I'm asking you.
Yes, sir, it has to be. And we have to do a better job, but yes, it has to be.
So you're saying it has to be, meaning at this current point in time, do you meet with Vanessa and Erica Atwood and their team, particularly around job training and employment for those individuals who are targeted under the GVI program?
I have not. Let me ask Heloise or Sarah if they have.
Yes. Good afternoon, Council President and Director Rashid. Yes, to myself and one of my team, we sit on Erica Atwood's Gun Violence Index Committee. So we meet with them. We're meeting with them every week. And we also are part of the Roadmap to Safer Communities strategy group as well. So we are a part of those committees and doing our part to provide resources as needed as they move through their work. Yes.
Thank you very much.
And let me follow up. And I hate to keep belaboring this point. So myself, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, probably, I guess Councilwoman Bass, Gauthier, I'm probably all, we are, as elected, have met with these individuals on a consistent basis. I'm talking about the people that are actually going to be out here doing this work. And they look at us, the council person. I had 27 people on a call last week. All of them, in their own rights, doing handling business. You have to send a signal. I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job, right? But they need to see, in all due respect to Ms. Jettison, they need to see you, sir, because you got credit. And Councilman Johnson laid out what a lot of people know about you to be a part of this process. But this is the number one issue right now in the city of Philadelphia as it relates to things. The level of violence in this city right now, and I've had this conversation with the mayor and everybody else, requires folks at the top of the food chain to get engaged. And then we understand how we delegate, because we all do that. But to initiate this conversation, this process, you got to be the person. Just tell you straight up, and then I understand you got other stuff, to do, just like I do, right? But I'm going to make time to be a part of that process. So that's all I'm just suggesting. This is the number one issue right now. Because like everybody said, if it's not safe, you can just forget about all this other stuff. All right?
Yes,
so, Mr. Director, thank you. I've abused like a whole lot of time. I'm going to recognize a couple of members. This is so passionate. I mean, this is like, man, I'm sick. This is off the chain out here. Right?
No question.
We got to do something about it. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me echo the sentiments about our good friend Dwayne Baum. Mr. President, I didn't like hearing you say we grew up in the government together, but when he said 25 years, I was like, yes, it's going back to the 90s. So Dwayne, thank you for your institutional knowledge, and Director Rashid, welcome to your first budget hearing. I want to get straight to it because I won't have that leeway with time, and I want to start, Director Rashid, with thanking you for noting in your opening remarks that our neighborhood-based commercial quarters in no way, shape, or form should be less clean, less safe, and less beautiful than what we see downtown. And that was the impetus for a whole lot of the work we've done in this body relative to commercial quarters. It's with that, in mind, that I want to just note for the record, I want you to tell me about the storefront improvement program and the camera program and the in-store program. I see that they're getting a little more in fiscal year 2022, but they're not being restored to their pre-COVID level.
In disadvantaged areas. You're just restaurants who have not applied yet to do it now. You go to the SBA site and
That is correct, Council.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, I hope I'm not losing my time, but somebody's television was on. Can you hear me, Director Rashid?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so again, I want to just note that those programs were getting a little more of FY2022, but they're not being restored to their pre-COVID levels. And these programs are critically important to the recovery and safety on our commercial quarters. They also don't require the millions upon millions of dollars in funding, just sufficient levels of funding in order to be effective. So can you let us know exactly where these three programs in particular, because the rest of my time I want to yield over to PHLTCB, but I want to hear about these three programs in particular now. And for those people from the viewing public who are wondering how that camera and why that camera program is so important, when we had the shooting at Broad and Olney, one of the things that law enforcement told us helped them in that effort was the fact that we had just had cameras installed there. So talk to us, Director Rashid, about those three programs.
Well, I agree with you. They're extremely important. We want to see them out there. I'm a businessman, and it's extremely important. That's all I can say. We would love to have more, to do more, to offer more of storefront improvement, in-store improvement, as well as the cameras. But we're going to work and do the best we can with what we have, Council Member. That's pretty much all I can say. This is the hand that we have.
I just want to note for the record, Director Rashid, as we walk through this budget process, additional funding and trying to move these three programs in particular to pre-COVID levels is definitely going to be, one of our goals as much as possible, especially when we begin to look at the American Rescue Plan funds, because this is neighborhood. So when we view this, I view this as, as infrastructure to a certain degree as well. And so as we talk about the future and advocating for funding, but when we talk about this budget cycle, that's going to be a priority. Now I want to move over to PHLTCB. It's near and dear to my heart. This council passed the $10 million transfer ordinance and funding for PHLTCB at the end of 2019. And for the record, this was, pre-COVID, before we even knew what COVID-19 was. And luckily, we were able to secure and allocate the money before the pandemic hit. Now, while the pandemic slowed down the launch of PHLTCB just a bit, I'm proud to note that we were still able to launch the program in late October 2020. Now, what I'm about to walk you through, I raised this during our budget briefing on April the 14th, so I know you're not going to be surprised. And I have a problem with this. From what I understand, PHLTCB spent about $5.5 million in fiscal year 21, but I want you to keep in mind, Director Rashid, that we started spending that money 4 months into the fiscal year. So we're just left with just $4.45 million of an initial $10 million for fiscal year 22. Now, when I look at your budget proposes an additional $450,000 to the Streets Department and an additional $450,000 to the Commerce Department for fiscal year 2022, and that's a total of $900,000. But that just leaves us with $5.35 million total for fiscal year 2022, which is about $200,000 less than what was spent in the roughly 8 months of fiscal year 21. Now, when we passed the $10 million transfer ordinance, this program was initially envisioned as a $10 million a year program to do exactly what you just described, Councilman Johnson and Council President Clark. Low barriers to entry for the workforce, giving Black and brown people the opportunity to gain skills, soft skills, get credentials, OSHA training, certification, and to be able to make $15 a year. And so, we scaled it down to $7 million a year because of COVID. But we know that if we're going to hold this steady, we at least have to have at least $6.4 million for fiscal year 2022, and not this $5.35 million. In addition, what's really frustrating me, Director Rashid, is that PHLTCB is budgeted out in the 5-year plan as a $5 million a year program. And if PHLTCP is downscaled to a $5 million a year program, we will have to cut some of the quarters from the program, or we'll have to cut each quarter by 20%. Now, the reason why I'm very frustrated about this is because, we were so happy when people got to Broad Nolly when they first started the pilot to say, hey, it looks different. If we've got to cut or scale it back, I don't care if they're in North Philly, West Philly, South Philly, wherever they are, we can't scale it. So why would we be proposing funding for PHLTCB that's less than what was spent in fiscal year 2021? Fiscal year 2021, and what are we proposing? It's like knowing that you need to, $100 to pay for something, but you just allocate $80 to pay for it, and then you're hoping and wishing somehow that things get worked out. I don't think this is how it's supposed to work. Again, the program needs at least $6.4 million to be flat funded for fiscal year 2022. And I'm hoping that we're going to think bigger than that, and $7 million a year to start, but eventually $10 million. And I want to get your feedback, Director Rashid.
Well, my first feedback is, you know your numbers, council member. You got all the numbers exactly right. So no argument there. At the current rate, we will be short in 2022. We cannot continue with this rate. We're going to have to try to manage it as best we can. That's pretty much that we have to play the hand that's dealt to us, and that's what we have. So we got to try to manage it better.
Councilwoman Parker?
I want the view and public to know, so that you'll know if you're in North Philadelphia, you might see orange sweatshirts or T-shirts on North Broad Street. If you move further up in Northwest Philadelphia, you might see lime green. When you get into South Philadelphia, ACOM, I know they may use blue, but that's 39 contracts awarded, to community organizations, and the average contract is like $144,000. And I know this seems like peanuts to some people, but it's making a huge difference to those organizations doing the difficult on the ground work, and we need to scale it to make sure that they have the ability to do it in a way that people in neighborhoods will be able to see their quarters cleaner. And I want to use your language. There's no reason why those neighborhood quarters should be less clean, less safe, and less beautiful. Mr. President, I'll go reserve my comments for the second round.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We concur. That's why we have a budget process. So we will have the discussion about the funding for this particular program. Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Council President. Mr. Director, welcome again.
Thank
you. I too want to, compliment and congratulate Dwayne Baum, Deputy Commissioner or Director Dwayne Baum, for his years of service. Whoever is going to write up that resolution, I'd like to be a co-introducer of that. I'm putting it out front because of my admiration and trust in the things that we worked on in the past with Dwayne Baum. So Dwayne, congratulations, well earned, and thank you for your years of service, which will dovetail in a second into our first meeting, Mr. Director. To sum it up, you're like, what is important to you? And my response was jobs and manufacturing jobs. And now it's manufacturing and industry jobs. We created a manufacturing task force with this body, City Council, and the mayor at that time was Mayor Nutter. It was one of the deliverables was creating an office of manufacturing and industry. And industry now is the sustainable future, which is why we are. I'm going to be glad to say that we are a logistical hub. We're a logistics hub, and when it comes to warehouse distribution and last mile, which is creating thousands and thousands of jobs. So we've heard a lot about connecting the dots over the past couple of days. Throughout the day, and that really comes down to matching end users, all right, with people, and making sure that they're using Philadelphia's in our own supplier network, which is in our neighborhoods. Manufacturing industry represents who we are as a city, how we were, once called the workshop of the world, creating jobs in neighborhoods, creating neighborhoods around these jobs, hence, the creation of row homes and creating a community where we can work, eat, and play. And we want to do it safely. And we have the public transportation to do so. So my ask is for you as we go through this process. One, I'd love to get the manufacturing task force or working group back together to talk about these logistics, this logistical hub that we have here with the working with last mile, because there's not, as Dwayne Baum will know, there's not a blade of grass or a square foot that is not industry that is under contract right now. They're all under contract, and they're building them on spec. That means if you build them, they will come. That means they're coming to our neighborhoods, they're in our neighborhoods, and they're going to create jobs. So we want to make sure those jobs are for our neighborhoods and getting the benefit of that, which will also put a lot of tax revenue back into our economy. So that's important to me. I'm going to keep talking about that throughout our process. Council Member Parker, I want to echo what you had said about making sure that our Philadelphia Taking Care of Business program is fully funded. And by the way, my commercial quarters asked me to talk about that today and for funding to be restored, as well as the storefront programs, security camera grant programs, and our in-store programs, so we can continue to have a safe, clean, and marketable corridors where our community can walk. So the folks that are in my area, council member, are wearing blue. So it works. I also want to thank Mr. Director to your staff, in addition to Dwayne Baum, is Karen Fegley. Karen Fegley, who really knows everything there is about our commercial corridors and our businesses. I've been dealing with your staff throughout this, this awful economic disaster that we just went through, called the pandemic, in addition to health. And they've been extremely helpful with connecting to, the merchant funds and other, storefront opportunities for my corridors, especially those small businesses who are suffering. So, we have a lot to work on. I will, follow up, but we, definitely want to be positioned to continue to grow our supplier network. If that's a part of Commerce's mission, grow it here locally instead of buying our cars from New Jersey or our widgets, from Texas. We can make them, we can manufacture them, we can distribute them all here with Philadelphians. So, I'm sure that is a similar goal that you share, as well as we do have a lot of good economics, opportunities that's taking place here in Philly. We have the shipyard that has a couple $2 billion of orders that are online. They're going to be ramping up, and we shouldn't be having workforce ready from a different state giving us temporary employees. We should be training through our workforce development, which I think we are with Philly Works, to continue to train Philadelphians into sustainable jobs. So it's more of a statement than anything else, but I wanted to get it in. And I also want to plug in restoring the funding for CDI, which runs through your office at Citizens Diplomacy International. They have a 400 return on every dollar that is invested. People internationally who visit the city as our hospitality and hotel industry rebounds, they are a thriving part of that. They've been doing the yeoman's work of the sister cities while they had lack of city resources, and they've been continuing to do so. So if we can restore their funding, which isn't much in the big picture, all right, that will help our culture and our international culture see who we are as a city. So I appreciate your time. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gauthier.
Thank you, Council President. Good afternoon, Director Rashid.
Good afternoon.
Given the unrest from last summer and the economic devastation wrought by the pandemic, I think we all would agree that we need to be providing as much support as possible for our neighborhood commercial corridors. Our businesses are facing a triple threat, right? The depressed economy from COVID, multiple cycles of civil unrest that many businesses still have not rebounded from, and in some neighborhoods, gentrification. As a city, protecting our commercial corridors that are pillars of culture and community like 52nd Street is of the utmost importance. And I know that you talked about some of this with council members Parker and Heenan, but I wanted to get some figures on the record. On page 39 of the budget detail, professional service contracts, I see that in FY20, Commerce provided $9,309,000 in funding to PIDC to support various commercial corridor programs like storefront improvement, cleaning, business attraction, and security cameras, as well as economic stimulus. And in FY22, Commerce is proposing to provide $3,767,000 to support these same initiatives. So by my count, that is a $5.5 million reduction in funding. Can you clarify whether the funding for those initiatives lives anywhere else in the budget, or are we really funding these initiatives at a level that is $5.5 million lower than the funding that we provided in FY20?
I believe it is absolutely less because a lot of the dollars from last year came through CARES money, which is not available in 22. But let me ask Karen Fagley if she can comment on that and hopefully support what I'm saying or correct what I'm saying.
Hi, everyone. Karen Fagley. Yeah, no, I was hoping you were going to call on Libby, Mike. I apologize, folks. So I'm not sure exactly what the difference is. It's just an adjustment, based on that. We are using.
Where's Libby?
Hi, hello everybody. Libby Peters. Hi, council member. Can you just give me the baseline? What was the year that you were referencing? Was that FY20?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna have to look into that and get back to you about the difference. But yeah, I would imagine, like Mike and Karen are saying, that it is less, as there were special allocations of CDBG CARES dollars and things like that. So we know that we are at a lower point than we were previously, and we know that we're at a lower point than we will be in the future in the 5-year plan.
Can you talk about whether these programs were cut due to budget constraints, or were they cut, because we believe that they are not effective and that the services are no longer needed?
Sure, I can take that one.
Go ahead, Karen. Thanks.
Yeah, we did cut these things based on on budget constraints. If you look at programs like storefront improvement and the business security camera program and our in-store program, having general funds, having those dollars flow through PIDC so we can distribute them directly to businesses, it's really helpful. It's helpful to do our work and make sure funds are equitably distributed and used in sort of to support other community work that's going on. And we're still continuing to do that as much as possible. This year, as everyone knows, was focused so much on the relief grants, so that really kept us busy. But we do hope to we've got some more funds put back in those programs, and we hope to continue to use them to support community neighborhood businesses.
Okay, and there was no CARES in the FY20 amount, right?
No.
Okay, all right. So the FY20 baseline would not have included CARES funding, just to clarify.
Correct.
So, thank you for that information. I believe, and I think many council members would agree, that at this time we need to provide as much support as possible to our neighborhood corridors. I was wondering if you could provide for me for each of those programs that we're cutting that were really targeted towards our neighborhood commercial corridors. Can we list metrics showing the level of services provided under these contracts in FY20 and projections for the level of services that we'll be able to provide in FY22? I think we really need to kind of put that side by side to see the difference in services and support for our neighborhood commercial corridor that will be derived from this $5.5 million gap.
FY20 versus FY22 projected?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
For each quarter?
For each of the major programs that we're cutting. Right,
so like the number of storefront grants we did in FY20 compared to the number of storefront grants we expect to be able to do in FY22 and so forth?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Next, we've all been talking about Black-owned and person of color-owned business and how it's important that we grow that as a city. I wanted to hear more about how Commerce will aid these businesses in coming into ownership of the properties that they are operating out of in order to give them an even bigger stake in our communities.
There are programs now in the CBDG money that we send to PIDC where there are monies available for you to buy your business, buy your building. Just recently, I took part in an analysis of a woman who had a daycare center, and she was being threatened with getting put out of her daycare center by 11. And PIDC was able to loan her the money to buy the whole building. So now she doesn't have to worry about that anymore. There could be more money. There's money in President Biden's program for things like that, and so we're looking forward to expanding that.
Okay, how much is available for that at this moment, and how much would we like to see it grow?
How much is available now? I can't tell you. I can get that for you.
Okay.
And how much we want to see it grow.
PIDC has used a couple million, and I know that we've added another, I think, almost $1 million to create an additional acquisition loan fund through WARC, one of our CDFI partners, and we're looking to create a third one through Neighborhood Progress Fund, just to have more options and make sure we're reaching as many clients in need as possible. Those could be big dollar funds. I think that it's really impactful and a really great way to build wealth, to do that, a wealth building economic development in our communities.
Thank you so much. And thanks for all of the hard work that you all have been doing, this entire year. We appreciate your support and your partnership.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Director Rashid, I want to thank you and your team. During the tense times, during the anticipation of the verdict, you guys put into place a response team to deal with the potential of protest and some rioting. And we are thankful in the commercial corridors, whether you talk about Market Street or Main Street, that was put into place. And we dodged a bullet because that jury did the right thing. But we were more prepared than ever because of your team, to not prevent things, but at least respond to some of the uprising that could have happened both on Market Street, 52nd and Jefferson, and 54th Street, all of which you've toured, which we are thankful for you and your team. Having said that, I want to echo what my colleague, President Clark, talked about, and what Member Johnson talked about, and what Jamie Gutierrez always emphasizes, which is the need to deal with every department as a response to providing anti-violence measures. And let me say what, and hear what you think about the possibility that because you and I are on the board of PIDC, and they're doing a great job of getting to brown and black businesses. However, there's another layer of review, and that is that there's a covenant in those loan documents that talks about job retention and job creation. And it would be truly appropriate for you and your team to take a look at how well we're doing at that. So when we give a business $500,000 on 52nd Street, did they hire the 5 young people from that area to actually work in that business? And that kind of evaluation can be placed in a anti-violence measure, because every one of those jobs can be a reduction in young men and women out there doing the wrong thing. So you do, as the Commerce Director, play an important role in anti-violence measures based on economic development resources given to the private sector to do the right thing, which often means hiring our kids. The second thing that might be helpful to me, well, let me first, how would you respond to that?
I think you're absolutely right. I think greater oversight of everything when we put money out is something that we really need to look at, and we will be looking at. We need greater oversight.
Well, I'm going to get a couple of my colleagues, give you a running start, Mr. Director, to get some of that work done. But we will revisit this in a resolution to come before council to get that report card.
Okay.
All right?
Yes, sir.
Second thing, what would be helpful, and President Clark was in one of the meetings on recovery and relief efforts, and we were listening to how the divvying up of resources was going to go to the Navy Yard and established industrial parks like that. And I couldn't help but think, even in a disaster, even in a pandemic, even in social uprising relief, the rich keep getting richer. And that I would love to see through the lens of equitable distribution, areas like Parkside, areas like American Street, areas like Hunting Park, get a lot of that attention that it sorely needs. We've had good conversations about maybe creating one of those parks to be a energy zero-based utilization park, so that when you come in there, you don't have to spend money on electric, gas, or heat, but to have it retrofitted so that it is energy efficient to the businesses that locate there. I would like your response to that. So I'm getting all of this on the record, Director Rashid.
Yes, sir. It makes a lot of sense, and we'd love to follow up with you on that. Capital budget is extremely important, and love to follow up with you on that.
Appreciate that, and look forward to working with you. You were in a room, now maybe I'm talking out of school, a couple of mayor races back. This goes back to the street administration. There was a promise made by then candidate Street. He was running for re-election, that he would provide technical assistance and resources to create a Muslim mall. And it's the month of Ramadan, so I'm going to bring it back up. And I was excited as a young bureaucrat in the city of Philadelphia, and that promise was never fulfilled. Not because he didn't want to, it's just one crisis after another will take you in a different direction. So I understand that. We are looking at a concept where we take overseas shipping containers, convert them to business incubators, similar to the thing you see at the Christmas Village, to create that in neighborhoods in the 3rd District, in the 9th District, in the 4th District, so that some of those young people that might be at risk could start businesses in those malls, to cut the containers in half, put a counter at the bottom, put a roll down security gate at the top, and actually let them sell paintings, let them sell eyeglasses, let them sell sneakers and jeans right out of there as their first step into establishing a business. And we are working with Senator Hughes to come up with that prototype. How would the Commerce Department be able to support that type of effort?
We'll figure out a way. We'll figure out a way, Council Member. That what you just described does not cost a lot of money. It takes more leadership than it takes anything else. And we'd be happy to work with your office or whoever wants to devote some leadership to bringing the young people together. There's some training that has to happen. I think that's the biggest part. It's not a lot of money.
Well, we like you. You're right. We are going to be able to convert each one of those containers to be a business house for $3,000 per. My final question, because I heard the bell rung, is how does the Commerce Department interface with the chambers, such as the African American Chamber and like these small neighborhood groups like Black Squirrel, to provide technical assistance to brown and black businesses? And that's my final question, Mr. President.
Well, the Commerce Department works with all the ethnic chambers. This budget coming up, we propose to provide financial assistance to many of the ethnic chambers after that was cut out last year, but it's in our current budget. Black Squirrel, I have met with, very interesting concepts.
You're not supposed to say their name out loud. They're a secret.
No,
I'm joking.
I'm waiting for their business plan, and as well as I talk to people almost every day who have great ideas. They just need to formulate them and put them into a plan that we can take over to PIDC or take to some of our consultants and work with. But great ideas. I think if I can just say, more organization like the chambers is necessary, and they need to have a greater impact, and we are here to help them. I've met with all the CDC organizations, the CDFI organizations, the business improvement districts since I've been here. I spend most of my time just kind of meeting people and understanding who they are and what they do. And that is extremely important for the work that we have to do.
Mr. President, we would have helped a lot more businesses had they had technical assistance to comply with some of the rigid application requirements, had they been able to get their books right. We would have helped a lot more of them. And thank you for allowing me to be over at PIDC to find out about those kinds of opportunities, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. We look forward to adopting some of those very creative ideas that you just referenced. Again, that conversation that we had with some of the individuals who are out here dealing with violence, understand that not every one of these young folks out here that need some direction is going to work a 9-to-5 job, but they got some great entrepreneurial skills. This may be selling the inappropriate product, but the skill set is there, and if we can just get them focused towards the right thing with a little bit of assistance, we think we can turn it around. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Council President, I just want to say for the record, I'm here, and I do have a question when my time is up.
Yeah, Councilman, I have you on. They teed you up. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks.
Thank you so much, Council President. My question is for Commissioner Rashid. You mentioned that the Chamber of Commerce for the Greater Philadelphia has joined the administration in advocating for an increase to the minimum wage. And I had some follow-up questions on that. When did this advocacy partnership begin? And what are some examples of how the city has worked with the Chamber to push for these changes?
I am not sure when it began. I know that I talked to the president of the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce at least 2 months ago, and he confirmed that they supported the joined us in supporting the $15 minimum wage. In terms of some of the activities that are going on with Harrisburg to try to get that passed, I'd have to pass that question over to some of our government relations people. Well, and we can get back to you to answer that question.
Okay, because just to be clear, is the joint advocacy an effort to fight for a $15 minimum wage in PA, or is it some other amount?
No, $15 in PA is my understanding.
Okay. So, part two of that, are you aware of how many businesses represented in the chamber are currently providing a $15 an hour minimum wage?
No, I'm not, but we can try to get that for you.
Okay. Has your department or the local Philadelphia Chambers of Commerce been in conversation with the National or PA Chamber of Commerce to lobby in favor of increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour? Because just to be clear, the PA Chamber and the Federal Chamber are the leading voices against passing the legislation to increase the minimum wage. So I was wondering how those conversations are going.
We'll look into that and get back to you. But I think you understand. I was talking about the Philadelphia Chamber, not the
PA. Okay.
We'll look into your question and get back to you.
And we can send them in writing as well, so you'll have the direct information to inquire about. So I want to acknowledge a partnership with the Chamber as an important advocacy step in the right direction, but only it means as much at the same time if we have the state and the federal chambers working against raising the minimum wage. Those state and national organizations have the power to lobby and kill important legislative initiatives. And again, this is an issue that would dramatically lift Philadelphians out of deep poverty, mitigate gun violence issues, and provide housing stability for those who aren't currently paid enough by the businesses here in the city. So I look forward to hearing from, the budget director and you getting those questions on how raising the minimum wage would increase our wage tax revenue in the long term. And, I'll politely suggest that City Council's awesome finance and budget team would be helpful to partner with you in getting that analysis. Not to give them more work, but I think they'll be willing to do that with you.
Well, Council Member, if I can just say, as I'm sure you know, but I want to put it on the record, there's a lot of misinformation out here, especially among business people, in terms of increasing the minimum wage and how it might, hurt their business. That is not supported by studies. Studies do not support the idea that an increase in the minimum wage will be detrimental to your business. But there's a lot of misinformation out there about that, and we would love to work with you in any way to try to get that information, those studies or whatever information you have, out to our small business people, all business people.
Absolutely. I would love to partner with you to make sure that information is dispelled in order for us to get our folks, working at a living wage here in Philadelphia.
Right.
My next question is about the Keystone Opportunity Zones. It's my understanding that the Commerce Department will be bringing 2 requests for Keystone Opportunity Zone extensions to the school board in June. Can you explain exactly where those extensions will be given and why you feel those extensions are necessary? And also, how much money would the school district and the city be losing if those extensions are approved?
Okay, let me ask Dwayne to come back up on that one. Well, Dawn is equally competent to answer those questions.
Right. So, Councilwoman, you're right. We are preparing to go back to the school board. We're not quite there yet, and we haven't worked out with the school board sort of when we can sort of approach them. But there are there are two, at least we're very aware of two key developments that are ready to proceed that are sort of seeking sort of approval from the city and from the school district to reset the 10-year KOZ benefits clock that has already sort of been running for a couple of years, and they're looking to sort of make sure that they can provide up to 10 years of benefits that would pass through to tenants who would move into buildings that they would be constructing. So again, we would want to make sure that there is a payment in lieu of taxes that sort of holds the school district harmless on the taxes that they would otherwise be receiving. And as I sort of said earlier, we would also be looking to put other requirements in place, including an economic opportunity plan that would sort of provide set aspirational goals for minority and women-owned business participation, as well as a commitment to training and apprenticeship programs for district students.
Okay, a little bit more information about these extensions would be helpful. And also, can you send over the incentive report that you had mentioned earlier?
Yes, we certainly can give you that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gim.
Thank you very much, Council President. Mr. Bum, you can stay on because I'm going to follow up with Councilmember Kendra Brooks. Can you state where those two extensions are located?
Sure. Although again, not probably quite ready for prime time, but the City Council about a year and a half ago had authorized extensions for, I think, 5 sites in University City and 1 site on the Delaware waterfront. And it's the site on the Delaware waterfront, the old Pico power plant that sort of is seeking extension, and a sort of a new office development site at 41st and Market that hasn't gone into construction yet, but that is seeking those benefits to be reset before they can sort of start to market to tenants.
Can you give the definition of what the KOZ is supposed to incentivize?
It provides it provides a payment of several taxes at the local level and state level in exchange for a commitment to create new jobs for at least 5 years, or for businesses that are relocating from someplace else within the state, a commitment to increase that job growth by 20% and capital investment by 10% over their previous levels.
I mean, those are the outcomes, but generally ideally it was designed to incentivize development in areas that would otherwise struggle to find such types of development. Is that accurate?
That's right, or at the very least to accelerate the development timeline. You're right.
And would you say then also that the state of Pennsylvania, because I've passed laws about this, is unable to actually track job growth because it has to be self-reported?
That's true. I know at the local level. I guess I can't speak for the state, but you're right.
So do you believe that 41st and Market in the heart of University City is an area that could not trigger development and job growth, and is thus most deserving of probably the most generous tax credit that is offered by the state of Pennsylvania?
I think that they will, again, for me, this is about, I think it's an area that absolutely will see development, but will it see development in the next 4 or 5 years, or can we sort of encourage the development to proceed immediately? So for us, it's large.
There are areas all across the city of Philadelphia that desperately are in need of development, and with businesses that could take advantage of such tax cuts. The question really is why the heart of University City? Is this the best? You know, we don't talk about tax cuts in terms of what they do. We talk about tax cuts in terms of opportunity costs that could go to other areas. And this is the question I think that's before us. I think one of the things that to follow up on Councilmember Brooks and what's being said is that previous complaints from the school board have been that they frequently do not have enough information to make that kind of decision. I do hope that whatever the department sends over, that it will clearly outline costs, benefits, and opportunity costs to the KOC. But thank you very much. I appreciate it. Mr. Rashid, I'm going to jump on what the council president and many others have said, which is that anti-violence efforts, support of an economic recovery are top of mind. And you have been in business for a long time. I know you've only been in the city for just a few months. But, in your mind, when businesses come to a city, what are the primary things that they are looking for?
In my mind and in my experience, the number one thing they're looking for is for their financial people to tell them that they can make money. And they feel like they can make money based on the market that it is in the city and the talent that is in the city and things that are very heavily weigh on their P&L statement. Right. And I think the ability, as I said, I believe in my earlier remarks, the ability to have a good pool of talent is extremely important.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. One of the things I appreciated about your approach to commerce is that you are looking at things other than just, like the biggest tax breaks. Like we can't be in a race to the bottom, for example, with Camden. We're not Haverford Township. We're not Jenkintown. I mean, we are Philadelphia. And so it's important for us to think about that. But we are in a conversation about what to do with tax cuts and about what could incentivize. And I think in your conversation with Councilmember Gautier, you talked about how the commerce programs grants to small businesses, which can be primarily local, I assume, have been slashed by almost down to 2/3. I think you control, if not just PIDC, but you actually control even a fraction of that, something like a little over 1 million. Is that right, sir?
That's correct.
Okay. And I think one of the concerns that we have is that we really want to, you talked about how last year there was CARES Act money. Well, this year we've got the American Rescue Plan. And the American Rescue Plan is a promise to America's cities. It's a promise to American entrepreneurs. It's a promise to hardworking families who stayed in Philadelphia, who weathered the pandemic, who are struggling through gun violence and housing crisis and with schools being closed. It's a promise that the rescue, and we are the cavalry that are going to bring it together. In our work with PHL Rent Assist, for example, we were able to move money through the city government and to reach families most in need. One of the reasons why I would like to see you direct money more directly into grants that go directly to local job growth, local hiring, and local businesses is that you have the chance to do this. Broad-based programs run by the federal government don't do this. PPP did not benefit small local businesses here in Philadelphia. So have you presented, was the $1 million in small grants what you had presented to the administration as like the most ideal use of Commerce Department's money and vision for job growth?
What did you say about 1 million? I'm not sure I understood that.
Was that what you would have presented to the mayors? Is that what you're presenting as the strongest path forward?
Well,
or do you think given more money you could show us a real program for local-based job hiring growth, and particularly concentrated in neighborhoods that are either hit hard by violence, where we can concentrate like a guaranteed youth jobs program or some type of program, and get those businesses back open?
Yes. Yes,
and you'd be willing to work with members of City Council to be able to present a bolder plan?
Yes.
Okay. I would look forward to working with you on that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson. Councilman Johnson. Over here.
I'm here, Council President.
Here. Yeah. Council. Okay,
Yeah.
on.
I just had one question regarding the city has a models employee program, and just want to get an idea. Do we have numbers on how many participants are participating in that program? That's the seasonal worker program. Just want to get an idea of that.
No, this program is not in effect today. We proposed to, I think it was in effect a few years ago. We proposed to, with Philadelphia Works, we talked to them and we proposed to bring that program back. To us, it just makes no sense that Philadelphia Works is a partner of the city of Philadelphia, and the city of Philadelphia is now working more closely with them on that model employer program. So we propose to bring it back this year with them.
So, and just give me additional clarity. So the program that allow individuals, let's say, to become a part of the streets department, the water department. I know Parks and Rec still do seasonal, but I was under the impression that the program was expanded a year or two ago to go from 6 months to 9 months of seasonal work with the possibility of a pathway into becoming a permanent employee of the city of Philadelphia. That program is no more?
There may be a hiring program like that, but it's not called City as Model Employer Program.
Okay. All right. I just wanted some clarity on it. And again, that's another model, right, where we are offering individuals a pathway, really not even just around the issue about just addressing gun violence, but out of poverty, right? Because not every young person wants to carry a gun. Not every parent who's out there trying to take care of their family are involved in any types of violence, right? But they do live in poverty, right? And having that opportunity, and I've been an advocate of trying to invest heavily, in terms of taking programs like that to scale as a way not only to address gun violence, but also as we address poverty. So not hiring hundreds and 200s of people, but really if we can expand between 500 and 1,000 of individuals. And that's why hopefully we'll take not only this budget process and even the next budget process while we're receiving federal funding, right, to begin thinking differently about how we're addressing the issue of poverty, which we know has a significant impact in the area of gun violence. And that's a program that I was always a big fan of. They had one called Philadelphia Futures under Michael Nutter, which was a very, 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 very successful program. And it gave young men an opportunity to become permanent employees with the streets department. But I'm not actually sure, where we're at with that particular program right now. But I just wanted to circle back around and ask that particular question. And then I'll follow up with you offline and see, what would the new model look like in terms of hiring and getting people to work. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. Just had a few quick questions for Commerce Director. One of the consistent conversations we've had over the past few days was in reference to investments of tax policy in order to spur growth in the city of Philadelphia and grow jobs, family sustaining jobs here in our city. From your experience, both from your career experience with AmeriHealth Caritas and also now in your role as Commerce Director, from your role in your career and now your current role as Commerce Director, what do you think will have the most impact for our revenue, well not revenue, our dollars coming from the American Rescue Plan, considering that these dollars have to be spent by 2024? Would it be a more targeted type of investment in reduction of taxes to help businesses in the city of Philadelphia, especially our small businesses, our black and brown businesses, and those on neighborhood commercial corridors? Or would it be some type of grant program to those type of businesses?
Let me answer it this way. The city has a lot of things that it has to do right now to come out of the pandemic and to work with the police force and all these things we have to do. So it's not just tax taxes or investing in the community, investing in businesses. But if it was as simple as that, I think there's a lot taxes or programs to invest in business growth or whatever. I mean, I think for a few mils reduction in the tax rate, we could get a lot more oomph, if we were to invest in business development. I'm pleased with the reduction in the tax rate. I think it sends a lot of good signals to the whole community, especially the business community and commuters and people like that. But for overall growth, to signal and to help build wealth, I think that's also extremely important.
And I agree with you. It's a multitude of factors, including providing resources to organizations that promote business development. I'm glad you clarified both in your testimony and others' testimony that the City of Philadelphia will be providing resources to help those nonprofit organizations that do certification of minority businesses that do business in the City of Philadelphia. There's been other conversations and investments and other ways of trying to help grow businesses. But from what I'm hearing, from dollars for direct assistance to businesses, and that means, from the perspective of directly providing resources to businesses, what I'm hearing is that tax reduction would get more bang for its buck with the limited resources we have than direct grants.
No, I don't think I'm saying that. The tax reduction is better than direct grants. No, I'm not saying that. I'm sorry if I was not clear.
Well, you said more umph. That's why I said that, because you said more umph. So if you can clarify what the more umph means.
All right, I'll have to translate umph. Yeah. Translate umph for you. I mean, tax reduction is good. The tax reduction, especially in the wage tax, is not gonna spur Black and brown business growth per se.
Right.
It's going to do something else, but it's not really going to spur black and brown business growth. So that's what I was really trying to say. It's not going to give oomph to that.
Okay. But if reduction was more targeted either to net income, would that provide that oomph you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. So you're saying so what I'm hearing is not an either or. We need to do both.
Right. Yeah.
But if you had limited resources, would you weigh one more than the other? Than net? Like we said, net income versus grants. What would you say? Remember, we have a finite amount of resources that have to be spent by 2024. So not saying the one or the other, but if we had to weigh one versus the other, what would be that weight? Net income, tax reduction, or direct grant assistance?
Well, I've spoken to various majority business organizations in the city, Center City Business District, Midtown Merchants, and people like that. And I've gone on record that the single most important thing I think that we need to do to recover our economy is to focus on the recovery or the growth of Black and brown businesses. I mean, as I said a few minutes ago, I mean, if we want to stop the unrest, if we want to hire more Black and brown people who are hurt most in the pandemic and recession, the best way to do that is to work on improving the environment and the success of Black and brown businesses. Black and brown businesses will hire more Black and brown people than anybody else, and there's so much upside in trying to help Black and brown businesses.
I definitely agree with you. In fact, myself and Councilmember Johnson will be having hearings this spring on the connection between poverty and that lack of investment of growing Black and brown businesses and gun violence, and the connection between the two, which is something that's been, I think, echoed through today's hearing. Considering how we prepare Black and brown businesses, I know my time is coming short. The American Jobs Plan, more likely not, will be passed sometime in the late fall. And so that's going to provide opportunities of infrastructure, maybe not at the same level as President Biden is talking about, but a reduced amount. I know I've started some conversations with colleagues in national cities about how cities across the country can help to prepare for that, as well as with the Pennsylvania Municipal League. But from the perspective of Black and brown businesses, what steps can we take as a city to start saying those businesses and rather the infrastructure opportunities, how we can prepare them for those opportunities now as we get ready for the fall and going into 2022 and beyond, and how we can prepare those businesses for those infrastructure opportunities.
Council member, we have a lot of ideas about that, and the bell rang. I'll be happy to talk to you offline. But diversity of the supply chain, I can have Sarah Stelz talk about that. We're very strong on that. Very strong on that. I made some comments yesterday that were taken a little out of context, but we strongly believe that diversity of the supply chain is a huge lever that we can pull if the private sector is willing to work with us, and we are absolutely willing to work with them. What I said yesterday was that I used the word I'm suspicious of whether that commitment will actually be carried forward. I said that because I talked to Black and brown businesses who would be the recipient of that supply chain diversity. I said that because I talk to these folks every day, and they see the headlines and they see these programs, and what they're saying to me is, nobody's spending money with me. I'm not getting rich here with all of this stuff. So they aren't. It's not trickling down, and that's where I think the Commerce Department has a big role to play. If absent us coming in and being the catalyst that I'm talking about, I don't think these programs are going to work. And I'm saying that based on my talking to Black and brown business people, large and small, every day. They're skeptical. They're suspicious. I'm just reflecting what I hear them say.
Thank you, Mr. Rashid, and thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Look forward to helping you on that one. Diversity is the key. Councilwoman Sanchez, I don't think is back yet. I think Councilwoman Parker has some additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Director Rashid, I want to go back to an issue that I was raising on the record yesterday during our budget hearing. If you look at the bottom of page 67 of the mayor's operating budget in brief, then you'll see that while Commerce is getting over $4 million more in FY22 as compared to only FY21, but only $215,000 of that is for Class 100. The rest of the money is for Class 200. And I just need you, for the record, Director, to help me understand what's going on here. I was under the impression that the Commerce Department, and we watched it, not under the impression, we saw it. They were decimated last year with several employees being laid off. And if we compare fiscal year 22 to FY20, the department is still receiving $738,839 less in Class 100. Now, I understand that the Commerce Department has momentarily shifted its mission to respond to the COVID crisis, but last year's budget cuts and layoffs had a significant impact on the Commerce Department and its ability to achieve its ultimate mission and goals. And I also understand the need to restore Class 200 spending for the department. But we can't do that, Director Rashid, from my perspective, at the expense of a Class 100 spending, the actual people who are going to do the work. I would think that Commerce, it needs more Class 100 dollars so that they can have program staff to manage and provide guidance to all of the contracted organizations that are receiving the Class 200 money. And so I just wanted to get your response to that on the record before I go into business service managers.
Well, I mean, we would all like to have more staff and more people and more resources. But I mean, again, I say we played a hand that's dealt to us, and this is what we have, and we're going to make the best of what we have.
Well, listen, I want to just state for the record, when you hear our colleagues today talking about the PPP grants for examples that were the loans, if you talk to small business owners, Director Rashid, on Vernon Road, a commercial corridor that you helped us, get back up and going long before you joined the Commerce Department, they will tell you that if any of them did receive funding, they were the last because they don't have the technical backroom supports, right? That's why we advocated for a program like Power Up Your Business at Community College of Philadelphia, because we know they didn't have the accountants and the lawyers to make sure that they could access all of those things. And so that's where the staff from the Commerce Department comes in, because if the staff is not there, Director Rashid, this is what happens. When we thought about the PHL-TCB program, it was because we were in our office and we looked out our window at City Hall at the clothespin, and we saw people dropping trash, walking downtown, but the key was there was somebody in a uniform with a broom and a dustpan, and they were getting that trash up. So we said, wait, it's not because people in the city are not throwing trash on the ground. It's just that they have the tax revenue to have the cleaning ambassadors in the Center City district, so they can afford to pay for it. And Director Rashid, that's how we came up with PHL-TCB. So it's with that perspective in mind that I'm going to make sure that we are watching that class 100 to make sure that we have the staff that we need to work on these quarters that are not fortunate enough to have their own business improvement district or so forth. The next thing I want to talk about is the business service managers. And listen, we worked hard when I first got here, because I knew that we needed somebody who could be the hands-on person to work with our commercial quarters, because my staff couldn't get consumed with doing it. Government with scarce resources. We fought very hard to get business service managers where we didn't have CDCs. But now, as I walk through and I talk with my 9th District Business Consortium, what we've heard from small business owners is that the city, often stumbles on this interdepartmental coordination efforts, right, Director Rashid? So it results in the owners receiving conflicting information from different departments at a crucial time when they're simply working and trying to open their business the right way. And instead of my staff, trying to be the business service manager, we need to be able to direct them somebody. It needs to be somebody's job to walk them through the process to say, no, this is how you get through this at L&I. This is how you get through this through the revenue department, so that they understand what to do. Can you talk about the importance of these business service managers in serving? It's like you used the term, and Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson used it yesterday, connecting the dots. Talk about how these business service managers, are connecting the dots between the cities and small business owners. And I don't want to see a reduction. If anything, I'm hoping to see an increase in that. What's your perspective, Director?
I mean, they're absolutely great. I've taken, I think it was 4 commercial quarter tours since I've been on the job here, and I see what the business services managers do every day, and they're walking the streets, they're talking to the business owners, they're understanding their issues, and their issues can be huge, in terms of trying to get something done through L&I or the streets or whatever. And whatever the issue is, they work those issues, and they're tireless. They work at night, because a lot of times people can only talk to them at night. They work on the weekends. They do whatever they have to do. I don't think we could operate without the business services managers. They are the eyes and ears of the Commerce Department.
Thank you, Director Rashid, for that acknowledgement, and we'll be paying close attention to that as we get through this process. The last thing I want you to comment on for me is when I asked about the MBEWBE spend here in the city of Philadelphia yesterday, a number I heard, Director Rashid, and I wanted to know if you and Iola could help me here. I got $291 million. $291 million, and just help me so I can make sure I have that that accurate. I was asking about the number of contractual dollars that we as a city through procurement. How much money have we spent with MBEs and WBEs? But I really want to focus on the minority piece.
Yeah. I think what I said was 271, not 91, 271 million.
Okay.
$271 million. And I broke it down to say that 190 million of that was spent with black businesses, about 32 million with brown businesses. And the rest
what I didn't get, Director Rashid, because I didn't get a chance to follow up. So if you're saying $271 million. What does that $271 million represent in the city's overall spend? What's that percentage?
That's about 32%.
No, it's 30.8%, 30.08%. Yeah.
30.08% high. Iola, good to see you. With that being said, Director Rashid or Iola, tell me out of that 30.08%, what are, when we talk about the contracts, where are Black and brown people participating most? I'm trying to get the industries.
You're talking about in terms of specific industries. It's really our largest percentage spend with minorities is with professional services. And so for FY20, we had, hold on one second, we had 36% of the $271 million, 36% of that was spent with professional services. And we're talking about, marketing consultants, accountants, people that really provide softer, skilled talent, not construction.
Got it. And I needed to know that for the record. And Director Rashid, I'm going to put this out there now. I was happy to hear you say 30%, not only, is it not sufficient, you acknowledge that you believe that we should be at 50%. I guess what I want to say on the record is that I appreciate you not changing your message no matter who your audience is. I've watched you with different constituencies and you've reaffirmed what you just mentioned. I would ask that right now the city of Philadelphia do everything in its power to review, any outstanding opportunities that we have via procurement, to put any kind of bids out for us to be able to increase those numbers, Director Rashid and Iola. I will tell you that I am looking towards both of you to push the envelope with the administration. I know this council will, to say if there are any contractual procurement opportunities available where we know Black and brown people can participate, that we get them out to bid ASAP and not hold on to them. And we wait till the very, very last minute that then we finally put them out. We should get that in the mix as soon as we can. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Director Rashid.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If there's real money,
Sorry. Hold on a second. Sorry, Council Lady. I'm trying to multitask. So I was on a call with state folks. Councilwoman, you concluded your question?
Yes, Mr. President.
All right. And looks like Councilwoman Sanchez, did you get back yet? So she'd be back at 3:30. She's not here. All right. Looks like that concludes the questions of this round for the good director. So if there are no other questions, Mr. Director, I want to thank you very much. Look forward to having that conversation offline about how we move ahead on these job initiative and the violence prevention issue. As you all agree, this is the most significant thing we need to be dealing with right now. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Mr. McDermott, next up, I believe we have the city commissioners.
Yes, Lisa Daly, City Commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Hello.
Hi. Just state your name for the record and please proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, President Clark and members of City Council. I am City Commissioner Lisa Daly, Chairwoman of the City Commissioners. Joining me today are Commissioners Al Schmidt and Omar Sabir, Deputy Commissioners Nick Custodio, Seth Bluestein, and Devin Ukta, and Budget Officer Mohammed Salim. I am pleased to provide testimony on the Office of the City Commissioners Fiscal Year 2022 operating budget. We are here to request $25,172,880 to fund our operations for fiscal year 2022. This request includes $11,110,589 in Class 100 for employee compensation. I'm sorry, my screen froze. For employee compensation $9,061,474 in Class 200 for professional service contracts, election board payroll, and polling place rentals, and $4,015,972 in Class 300 for materials and office supplies, and $984,845 in Class 400 for computers, furniture, and equipment. Our request is $7,126,028 more than what the administration is proposing. While the administration's proposal is an increase from the budget passed last fiscal year, it is less than what their fiscal year 2021 pre-COVID budget proposal was. The administration's proposal does not fund us at adequate enough level to operate and prepare for the 2022 primary and general elections. I mean no disrespect to those who are on the ballot this year, but the eyes of the world are going to return to Philadelphia next year for the governor and U.S. Senate elections. Control of the United States Senate will run through Philadelphia, and the situation has become even more high profile since Senator Pat Toomey announced that he would not be running, leaving an open seat. It is going to feel a bit like 2020 in the scope, intensity, and scale of the work and expectations from Philadelphia citizens and others worldwide. We would have liked to have begun this preparation in December, following our partial recovery from the November election. However, we have been bogged down outfitting the ballot processing space in our new warehouse. So these preparations have become part of the budget process. This time last year, we appeared before you and said that we were not being funded at an adequate level and that we would expect to need a mid-year transfer to make it through the fiscal year. We ended up receiving a $10 million grant to fund most of the highly demanded election services and long-term investments in equipment to handle the surge in mail-in voting that were not in our original budget requests. And yet, we still required a $9,746,830 mid-year transfer to make it through the fiscal year. Further, we had to delay the acquisition of electronic poll books until next fiscal year. The administration's proposal would cut all funding for electronic poll books. Our request would restore that funding. The acquisition of electronic poll books would be a one-time expense with annual maintenance. We have been trying to replace our paper poll books with electronic poll books for several years now. The e-poll books were supposed to be implemented in the 2019 general with the new voting system, but the equipment did not pass the pilot election phase of the testing and the purchase was canceled. We would like to restart the process. The electronic poll books will allow for faster and more efficient voter check-in at polling places, and for voters to look up their correct polling place if they are in the wrong location. It will also shave several days off of the counting of mail ballots, as it will more quickly allow the staff to cross-reference the ballots that arrived after the creation of the poll books to ensure that these voters did not vote in person, a key step we take to ensure accurate election results. Since the transition to a new voting system in 2019, our department has become much more technical. With the new vote-by-mail equipment that was purchased last year with the funds from the CTCL grant, the amount of new technology that our department relies on has increased. This reliance on technology is going to expand as we continue to modernize our elections to the level that befits a large election jurisdiction like Philadelphia. However, we have not expanded our IT capabilities during this time. Our IT staff remains the same two people, one of which pulls double duty helping to oversee the voter registration program. We have leaned heavily on OIT and an outside consulting firm to assist our staffers, but this is not sustainable long term. In December, we met with consultants and representatives from OIT and the CAO to discuss what we learned from the 2020 general election. One of the main takeaways from that meeting was recommendations for additional staffing. Unless we enact the recommended IT staffing increases, we will be unable to transition the work currently being done by the consultant in-house We will have to rely on them going forward, and we will be unable to take on any new technology-related projects. Our request would provide funding for the 4 new IT positions so that we can continue to modernize the department. It is important that we move on these new positions quickly so that everyone can become acclimated in time for the 2022 primary. A main point taken from the staffing recommendations was that additional operational supervisory staff, as well as staff to assist with budgeting and HR, are needed. Like most of Council, the administrative staff and the Commissioner's offices have traditionally focused on public outreach and constituent service, while some Deputy Commissioners' main focus is on operations. The changes in elections in the last several years have outpaced and overwhelmed our small administrative staff. Not only has this adversely affected our public outreach and constituent service, but it has made it harder to supervise and oversee overall operations. Our budget request would provide funding for the recommended additional operational supervisory deputy executive directors who will each have a different area of operations that they will focus on, and an administrative officer to oversee HR and budget, allowing the deputy commissioners to be removed from the day-to-day of those departments and allow them to focus on preparations for the midterm election and on moving our department forward. We are very grateful for the generous grant that we received from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. It allowed us to open satellite offices and install drop boxes without having to come back to Council for additional taxpayer funds. I know there are some in Harrisburg who view us taking private grant funds from a nonpartisan, nonprofit negatively, but I will not apologize for saving Philadelphia taxpayers $10 million and expanding voting access. We will continue to pursue grant funding in the future to alleviate the pressure on Philadelphia taxpayers, whether it be state, federal, or private. What most people do not realize about the CTCL grant is that the $5 million of the $10 million went towards the new equipment to more effectively send and count the mail ballots. This equipment was on prime display at the Convention Center last November and represents a major investment in Philadelphia elections that will serve us for over a decade with no upfront cost to taxpayers. We will now be able to count ballots like other large mail ballot jurisdictions, such as Denver and Orange County, California. While the first year of service and maintenance was covered by the grant, our budget request contains the funds needed to continue to pay for the ongoing service and maintenance. In addition, it has become clear that the specialized nature of the printing, mail sorting, and inserting equipment requires a new unit of dedicated staff to run said equipment. This new mail ballot services unit will be made up of 1 team leader and 5 staffers. The size of this unit was recommended by the vendor and is included in our budget request. Absent the legislature in Harrisburg passing a law to allow for some period of pre-canvassing, as you saw with our operation at the Convention Center, counting all the mail ballots timely takes an army of temporary staff. We require this additional temporary staff because we cannot start counting the mail ballots until Election Day, when our permanent staff is running the in-person election. With the lower number of mail ballots that we are seeing during the DA controller election, we can expect to spend about $200,000 in temporary staff for each election in 2021. For the 2022 primary, we expect to receive enough mail ballots that we will have to return to a 24-hour counting operation. If our expectations hold true, this means we will need to spend about $400,000 on temporary staff next spring. Without this temporary staff, we will not be able to post any mail ballot results on election night, and it will take much longer for the results of the election to be known. Our budget request contains the funding for the temporary staff to count the ballots on Election Day and beyond, so that we can deliver clarity to the election outcomes as quickly as possible. Since the passage of Act 77 and Act 12, postage has been a growing expense. We now expect to pay about $1 million a year in postage alone. Part of this is due to our desire to continue to pay for the return postage of ballots. Providing return postage makes it easier for voters to return their ballots since they do not have to buy a stamp. Our budget includes the additional postage costs, including continuing to pay for the return postage of the ballots. We have seen recently that some states, such as Georgia and now Florida, are enacting laws designed to reduce access to voting, and the witch hunt in Arizona with Maricopa County's ballots, that the big lie about the 2020 election is still ongoing. To this day, we are still receiving emails from people saying that the 2020 election was a fraud, that either we or the Secretary of State acted illegally, and these are just a few of the accusations that are released out there. I watched the news the other day about Florida's new law. I heard a phrase that really bothered me. Quote, ensure that only legitimate votes are counted, end quote. This implies that there are illegitimate votes being cast and that these new restrictive laws are necessary. In reality, these types of laws are a tax on lower income, mostly minority voters in large urban areas such as Philadelphia. There are plenty of people out there willing to believe that there are such a thing as illegitimate votes. The biggest problem facing democracy in this country today is that there are bad actors willing to misinform the populace, most of the time making very good money while doing it. And that people are so willing to be so easily misinformed. Memes on Facebook are becoming news sources. As a trusted source, our department must gear up to combat misinformation and provide accurate information in a rapid speed. Right now, as everything else that you see coming out of our department, communications and social media are performed by administrative staff. But this is not their sole duties. The bulk of our communications is handled by my deputy, who has other responsibilities. It is not unusual for the rollout of things to be delayed because it is a busy news day. By the time October of last year hit, the media requests and the need to combat misinformation campaigns became so bad that the city had to bring in a media consultant to handle all the inquiries from around the world. The media consultant stated that the level of press interest in our election was like nothing else that he had ever seen in his nearly 30 years in the business. One cannot just parachute into election administration a month before a presidential general and expect to be able to answer every question. And our staff still had to provide a lot of information. Our budget request will allow us to establish a small, full-time communications team, not unlike what council has. It will help us better disseminate information. For example, no more press releases sent at 6:30 p.m. on a Friday, and to quickly respond to press inquiries without sacrificing operational priorities. We have continued to prioritize the values of diversity and inclusion in making sure the demographics of our department reflect the citizens we serve. As of December 2020, our demographics were 55 white, 72 minority, 62 females. The demographics of our recent hires are 8 African American and 5 white, 1 Asian, and 1 Hispanic or Latino. Language access continues to be a prime focus of our language access, and our language access coordinator, Deputy Michelle Montalvo, does a fantastic job. Currently, our staff contains 6 staffers who speak Spanish, 2 who speak Malayalam, 1 who speaks Italian, 1 who speaks Bengali, and 2 who speak Urdu, Punjabi, and Hindi. Staff and poll workers can also use the language line to assist with translation. We also had 244 divisions covered by bilingual interpreters this past November, but we are always looking to do better, and we will continue to work to recruit more interpreters. Our budget requests include funding for a dedicated Spanish interpreter to work in the County Board of Elections office and City Hall, so that we can better serve the Hispanic and Latino voters. Language access is set to be one of the biggest focuses of our department during the next year. We are eagerly awaiting the results of the 2020 census. We fully expect that when the language results are announced, the Chinese will have grown to the threshold that we will legally require to support it alongside Spanish and English by Section 203 of the Voting Rights Act. We are still evaluating the expected cost of this mandate, though we expect the biggest budgetary impact will be faced by procurement in the form of additional advertising. We are also in conversations with the law department and advocates about going beyond our Section 203 requirements to support additional languages. We look forward to discussing this further with you as we begin to develop proposals. I mentioned earlier that the procurement department, which handles all of our newspaper advertising for the city, places our newspaper advertising. The newspaper ads come out of their budget. Like council, we advertise beyond our legally required papers to include Spanish language and community papers. The cost of these advertisements have increased in the last couple of years. We have resisted those who have requested that we cut our advertising in the additional papers. We wish to continue to advertise in these papers and strongly support an increase in procurement's advertising budget. One of the biggest outward-facing aspects of our department is our website. It is about 10 years old, not optimized for mobile devices, a .com instead of a .gov, and several of the features are no longer available because the programs they were built on are no longer supported. In the next year, we are working to launch a new, modern website that will be more secure, be mobile-friendly, and will utilize a .gov URL to verify that it is an official website of Philadelphia elections, and will restore and add new features. To accomplish this, we will be working with OIT to utilize the best of the Phila.gov platform, but customized to meet the needs of our department. Included with this launch will be a companion mobile application that will provide smartphone users information from the website and additional features. We expect to pay for this using funding available from our state election security grant. I have just spent a long while telling you what is in our budget request, but let me take a minute to address what is not in the request. While we plan on shoring up the holes and making sure the areas of the city, such as West Philly, the Southwest, and Roxborough-Manayunk area that do not have drop boxes, get one, our request does not include funds to expand the number of drop boxes beyond that. It also does not include funds to reestablish satellite election offices beyond what currently exists at City Hall, and if the pandemic subsides, our office at Delaware and Spring Garden Streets. These projects will require additional funds, additional staffing, and additional impacts on other departments' budgets, particularly the Department of Public Property. We are already asking for $7 million above what the administration proposed, but are willing to discuss these projects and funding if council is interested. During these unprecedented times, managing elections in the midst of a global pandemic, we continue to be committed to protecting and supporting the votes of every citizen of Philadelphia. We have a lot that we hope to accomplish in the next 18 months, and we require the staffing and funding to be able to do it. Without that, we will be forced to cut and scale back our preparations of the 2022 midterms, when we will again be under the microscope. We hope that you will agree that this is all necessary and that you are able to appropriate the necessary funds. If you are not able to appropriate these funds, we then hope to work with you on priorities and deciding on what should be cut. I would just like to take a moment before I finish to thank our dedicated staff who have been working long hours on site to prepare for our third election during this pandemic, oftentimes doing the work of 2 or 3 people. We appreciate this opportunity to present our testimony and are happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just have a couple of questions. Echo. Mr. Is that in your speakerphone?
That's not us. I can hear you fine.
All right.
Is everybody on mute, Council President?
I don't know. I'm not hearing it here. Anyway, let me run through this. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Real quick, one of the things that a lot of people liked in the last election, and it was a significant election, the drop boxes that were placed throughout the city, multiple locations. Will you be in a position to utilize drop boxes again this year? And if so, in how many locations and what timelines would they be available?
Presently, we have 14 drop boxes that are throughout the city, and they are 24-hour boxes. They are in the same 14 locations that they were in November. We never removed them, so we just are using those same ones.
Same one.
We would love to be able to expand that, but in order to do that, we need to put together a security camera network, which will have an impact on our budget as well as the OIT budget. So we need to have, we would need to have a chain of custody, a ballot collection team, and as I said, our own security network.
That will cost more money. Let's make do with the 14. No more money. Speaking of money, there's the request that you submitted is $7 million more than the administration submitted to us. I'm assuming you have had conversations with them about this?
Yes, we've had conversations, many.
Their position as it relates to their proposal versus yours was what exactly? Was it that they didn't believe you needed it because of what? Or it was just, this is what you get?
That was what we got.
Okay, so no real discussion about the basis for the disparity in the funding request. Okay. Let me ask you a question about the machines, the new and the old voting machines. What's your plan on storing all these machines?
So our new, the voting systems that we purchased in 2019 are in our new warehouse, which is a climate-controlled warehouse that offers us optimal space to store those machines for a long time, as they should be stored to last us longer. But in addition, we were fortunate that when we finally acquired a warehouse that was large enough for the voting machines, that warehouse also had available contiguous space that we acquired finally, which allowed us to put the new mail-in balloting equipment and the printers in there. So we have all of the machinery that we need for the mail-in voting, as well as all of the actual in-person voting machines, all in one location.
And where is that warehouse?
It's on Roosevelt Boulevard in the Northeast.
Was that a purchase by public property?
That is a lease. It's a lease that on a property after a 2-year search. That was one of, I think, 2 available properties that met our needs.
So it's a lease, and how long is that lease?
It hasn't come before council yet, to my knowledge.
Okay, just wondering. I know that there was a conversation earlier about the facility and
we have a serious financial investment in firms that are building. We have there's a lot of electric and we're finishing
Okay. In terms of, I know a number of the offices, essential services, you all were obviously one, and there were challenges dealing with COVID. You all managed to get through it and run not trying to make this political, but the outcome was one that we felt pretty excited about, particularly given the fact that the city of Philadelphia was highlighted in terms of being able to push that number over the top. What are the protocols that you continue to use to minimize any COVID infections as it relates to your department, given the fact that you have to work? I mean, you can't do most of this work remotely. It's a requirement to be in person.
Yeah, I mean, we have been really lucky. We follow the protocol. We have PPE widely used throughout. Our employees are required to wear a mask. We have cleaning done at our DSG after every shift. We're paying extra money to have cleaners come in and clean everything before the next shift comes in. And we are working in smaller shifts so that there are less people at the same time. Of course, that will change as we get closer to the election, but that seemed to be the best way for us to be able to mitigate this pandemic, is to have smaller number of people working together so that if a person does get infected or is exposed and they have to quarantine, that quarantine, instead of affecting 50 people, it would only affect maybe the 12 people that they work with. That was, just something that we decided to stick with through November till now, actually, and it has worked well for us. As I said, as we get closer to the election, we'll be going full tilt, but we've also worked closely with the Department of Health to get people vaccinated, so hopefully we'll be in good shape in that.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. I believe Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioner Daly, Commissioner Sabir, Commissioner Smith, the City of Philadelphia owes you a debt of thanks. And you were at the epicenter of one of the most contested elections in our lifetime. And all eyes were on you three, looking at how we were conducting our elections. And after careful scrutiny, all they could do was say they did it right. Philadelphia is often maligned for a place where bad things happen. To quote a president of the United States, I am so proud, and I know, having talked to the president of this council, he was so proud to be a Philadelphian during that period of time, that we're all holding our breath, saying, oh my goodness, I hope they don't find a box of ballots somewhere under a table, because he would have made that an international conspiracy theory. I remember seeing Omar, Commissioner Sabir, at many of the drop sites and temporary sites. I remember you, Commissioner Daly, when State Representative Boyle and I did an assessment hearing, joint hearing between the state and the city. And Mr. President, after we got off of that call, we were scared to death that we needed a bigger vote and that we weren't ready. We were moving from a paper world to an electronic mail world without any instruction manual, without any precedent, without any ability to say, oh, look, this is what they do, so we can do it too. They had to build a plane and fly it at the same doggone time. So when that final vote came in, and it was Commissioner Smith who was on national TV, because you could have went on, Omar Sabir could have went on, but you guys are Democrats. And there would be a thought of doubt about your authenticity. But when a Republican stood up and said, you know what, right is right, wrong is wrong, and we did it right, I was proud to be a Philadelphian. And tens and thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people who watched that newscast were so too. So now, having said all of that, I, for one, want to help figure out how we can maintain this. Because I agree with you that the QAnon theorists, the people who stormed the Capitol, the people who believed in the steal aren't and haven't gone anywhere. And their next shot at gaining control again is in the midterm elections. And they're going to look to places like Philadelphia, contested Senate races, to try to find malfeasance. So if we don't do everything we can do to arm you, to arm us, and to more importantly, safeguard the process, it's our fault. So for me, as an independent elected official, I need to know, and you said it in your delivery of your testimony, but what do you have that you didn't have that you need paid for going forward? And that can mean equipment, and that can mean staff to run that equipment. But we need to get a better sense, and we can't do it in one budget setting. We need to go offline and go line item by line item to see what is needed to have a safe and fair election in Philadelphia. Let me say this. I know some people are never, ever going back to physical voting again. They're just not going to risk their health. Particularly young people who are vaccine hesitant. So, Mr. President, we're talking to heroes today. And I'm proud of their effort. I want to put our money where my mouth is right now, so that we can't look back at this testimony at this time and say, had we been penny wise yet pound foolish, we could have avoided some of the national embarrassment that we will get if we don't do this right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you much. Yeah, I like most of us, we're very proud of the commissioners, City of Philadelphia's commissioner's office, and the yeoman work in spite of all kinds of challenges put before them, but they figured out a way to get through it with a new process. That was, I think, the most amazing thing at a time that was like no time to make a mistake. I like the councilman. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Council President. Where do I begin after that? Councilmember Jones. Quite impressionable intro, but extremely worthy. So, one, congratulations, Chairwoman Daly, Commissioner Sabir, and Commissioner Schmidt. I want to also say thank you on behalf of the 6th District, and I'm sure all Philadelphians. The amount of work and the integrity that you all put in under intense pressure with a quick turnaround. I mean, we had a new law. All right, and by the way, I want to clear this up for the record, and if you could shed some light on this. So, the new voter law for mail-in ballots, that didn't just start last year. It was the year before, right? So the state, which is bipartisan, I want to remind everybody, was moving towards mail-in ballots anyway. It's like almost like a no child left behind, unfunded no child left behind. So you get new law that's coming, and the state never fully funded, the ability to receive and implement the new voting change. So it was up to us as a city, in your leadership as a chairwoman and as commissioners, right, to help champion and partner with the city to make sure that the integrity was in place. during a pandemic. Would that be a fair enough statement?
Yeah, I mean, the first election with the no excuse mail-in voting was in June of 2020. And so that was the first election where we did it. And as you know, that was really at the height of the pandemic. So state didn't give us any money, and yes, we relied on the city.
Exactly. All right. And you all and all your employees. So I want to echo what Councilmember Jones was talking about. Actually, he quoted, I think, Brian Abernathy, right, when he was talking about early on in the pandemic, where he talked about us flying a plane and building it at the same time. But we got where we needed to be at the end of the day. So a couple questions. So in addition to saying thank you, one, I think we all just witnessed over the past two elections of last year, primary and general election. And by the way, the primary was moved, the date was moved, so it wasn't the original date. I think we all just witnessed and went through a change on how voters vote, and not just in Pennsylvania, but in Philadelphia in bigger numbers. There's more opportunities for people to publicly engage in the voting process, and it's adapted to the times, right, which government usually is slow with doing, especially when it comes to technology. So that being said, forget about resources at this time and funding. What have we learned over the last two elections when it comes to technology and providing access in a different way with, I think, with an election process that I think will be changing when it comes to people's voting patterns?
Well, I think one thing we definitely learned is that it takes a really long time to count all those mail-in ballots if you don't have the proper equipment. We learned that in June when we had a few short months to implement the no excuse mail-in voting, and then we were hit with the pandemic. There were a lot of people that were really mad at me, candidates that are still don't speak to me because they didn't understand, why they couldn't find out on election night whether or not they won or lost. So we learned that lesson in June. It was a lesson that we took with us as we went into November. That's why we were so relieved to get that CTCL grant. The CTCL grant gave us the equipment that we need to get the ballots printed faster. But in order for us to continue to learn and grow and to be able to do this on a consistent basis, and quite frankly to get better at it, we need our staff to reflect what we are currently charged with doing. So we need to supplement our IT staff desperately. We need administrative support. We need help. We are relying on departments all over the city. I know there are department heads that if they're listening, they're just cringing because when they get an email or a phone call from me, they know I'm asking for something big, and it's always, I need it right away because there's an election. Because, as we all know, it's always election time, every 6 months here at least. So, I mean, they're the things that we learned that it takes a long time to count the ballots. The technology matters, and we needed to modernize our equipment. And now that we've done that, we know that we need to fill our staff and plug a lot of holes in order to continue to do this and to do it well and to do it even better.
So, were you able to measure the scale, the savings in scale since the equipment, versus time, and how laborious it was with doing it the old-fashioned way? Well, I mean, we went through a new law that is supposed to be modernized. We weren't equipped with that, and it was like we're stuck with hanging chads. All right, in counting and everything like that, which is fine. That's the way we've done it for many years and decades. All right, but we got new equipment, we have new sorting equipment, and there must be some savings that we can point up. I know that we can point out there must be savings, all right, that's tied to the the upfront investment that we're asking for, because you're going to be able to do your own mailings instead of subbing it out to a mail house. You're going to be able to make sure that your employees are safe, that the turnaround is quicker, and it takes away any kind of political suspicion or any of that kind of stuff. So are you able to measure savings when it comes in the long term, not initial startup?
I think that we will have measurable savings. That is really where the most of our savings is going to come from our ability to print, mail, receive, and open and process those ballots all in-house, all by ourselves. Once we are able to get all of those pieces moving together and everything's churning, we'll have real measurable savings. It took us nearly 2 weeks in June to get all those ballots counted. We did most of it by hand. It took a little, like 3 days in November for a lot more ballots. Plus the equipment that we have, that all comes with the price too. So we'll be able to figure it all out. There will be marked savings, no doubt, because we will. It takes less time, so there'll be less staff hours. We'll be doing it ourselves. We won't have to contract it out. We'll be printing it ourselves. It will definitely save us all money, and it'll be a more streamlined, more efficient process.
Council President, there's nobody else on the queue. Do you mind if I ask another question?
Yeah, no, it's nobody else queued up right now, sir.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So as elections change, all right, when how people vote slightly, and increases inside, and the technology demand is there. Can you explain a little more on the electronic poll books?
Sure. So typically, and what we're used to is in-person election day, a voter goes into a polling place, they walk up to the table, they give somebody their name, and they page through a book or books looking for their person's name. And that is actually their sign-in sheet from, taken from the Shore system. The voter signs to say that they are there in person voting, and then they go to the voting machine to vote. The electronic poll book will eliminate those paper books, and what that will enable us to do is to upload the voter registration files in real time, as close to real time, because they won't be online. But since the state shortened the registration window from 30 days to 15 days, the supplemental list for people when they go to vote on election day is a lot larger, because we have to cut our poll books sooner, and we still have registrations often to get through. So we get through them by election day, but they don't make it to the poll book. That won't happen anymore, because we'll be able to put them onto the electronic poll book. In addition, now that we have the mail-in voting, for voters that requested a mail-in ballot, may have voted it by mail, did not get a confirmation, or whatever the case, they go and they vote in person. We painstakingly take back the poll books at the end of the night on election night, and we scan in every voter record that voted in person before we scan in a single ballot, mail ballot, so that we don't have people, so we can see if anybody's voting twice. If we had the electronic poll books, that would eliminate that. So we could get through that whole process faster of counting of the ballots. In addition, the election board payroll that I know is a topic of much dismay for a lot of our election board workers that we rely on tremendously. Right now, that's all handwritten, and those handwritten sheets have to get into our department, and then people have to spend days and going over them, entering them into the system, re-entering them, checking them, cross-checking them. We won't have to do that anymore because they will be able to type in their names, and all their information, and we'll be able to upload that information as well. So the electronic poll books would just make for an efficient election from in-person to mail to all around. It will totally just make elections. We'll go from driving a Chevy to a Ferrari with regard to the efficiency of our elections.
Thank you. And everything needs to be updated these days, right? And that includes the integrity of our elections and the process. And we have what you call an off election, lower turnout. With this election that's upon us now. But the infrastructure and what you do as a commissioner's office is still the same, all right? With maybe a little less people that you need to hire temporary, but same amount of polling places, same amount of workers. Is that correct?
I mean, without a change in the election code, we still have to do the same in-person voting, same amount of divisions, same 1,703 divisions that we need to find polling locations for, which, as you know, Councilman, is getting harder and harder.
Yes, it is. Council President, I'm going to end with my usual with public property, if I may. Two things. One, when it comes to public property, Chair, you made a comment where you asked a question to the chair lady about a lease going through public property. It has yet to get to me. It will for introduction as soon as the administration and the commissioner's office can come to some additional agreements on additional space for the equipment that they have up there in their warehouse. And Commissioner, all of your employees that are out there serving the public and is the face with elections, they are essential workers, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to ask some questions. I will send you in writing. You don't have to answer them now. One, where are all your offices, including satellite offices, located? How many employees, full-time employees, part-time employees, meaning seasonal and provisionals, contract employees, and vendors that you have for the election? How many of your employees that are out in the field, or are they located in one space? What is the square foot of the space that your employees are working every day? How much of that space is storage space? Do we own or lease the space? Obviously, which lease is up for renewal or needs still to be negotiated? And how many of your workforce is working remote, and how many hours, if they are working remote, are they indeed working from a remote location? So again, thank you for last year, and thank you for your testimony here today, to you and to your colleague and fellow commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. And Commissioner, thank you very much for your testimony, and thank you for you and your team's hard work. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, there appears to be no additional questions or comments from members of the committee. So with that, this committee will stand in recess until May 5th, 2021 at 9:30 a.m., at which time we will reconvene on Microsoft Teams. I want to thank you all very much.
Thank you.